Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Dollinger, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 12. Yes, let me check my phone. I believe we're at 12 episodes. Yes, we are at 12 episodes. It's 11:49 p.m. on Wednesday, September 1st, and yep, I'm super dedicated. I've been working some fun hours and but that's not really what I have to blame tonight on. I actually just watched an entire episode of Bachelor in Paradise with my lovely fiance. Shout out Maddie for getting me into the Bachelor franchise. It's definitely entertaining and definitely is filling the void that I had created whenever I had when Hulu actually took off 90 Day Fiancé. That was my favorite TV show. So shout out not Hulu for taking down my favorite TV show. Anyways, shoot, this is going to be kind of a casual, quick episode because I'm trying to go to bed. But I guess a couple updates. Yeah, we're kind of at a bi-weekly upload schedule right now because I've been doing some fun work on a project where I'm working with counterparts that are overseas. So I've had a handful of later evenings, so I just really haven't had as much time in the evening to stop and record the podcast. But I do have a couple of interviews I hope to line up. I have a friend that's a nurse working as a nurse during COVID. If anybody's interested in that, I think that I'm going to try to get them on the podcast. I have another colleague that's an engineer with an engineering degree that is in software, which a couple of my friends that are software engineers now that got electrical engineering degrees. So I'm trying to convince one of them to come on the podcast. And then I've got a couple other people I'm leaning and poking on at Zachary, where I work. Again, this podcast does not reflect the views of my employer, but I do have a couple lovely coworkers that are pondering the idea of coming onto the podcast. So let's send them good vibes and encourage them to come on. And if you have a story to tell as an engineer or with your career in general, I'd love to have you on. Send me a message at engring.success@gmail.com. I'd really love the opportunity to interview somebody that I don't already know. That would be a good time. And as always, if anybody out there has any questions or wants my opinion so I can stop giving completely unsolicited advice, then feel free to send your questions as well to engring.success@gmail.com. Yeah, but today's episode is going to be a little more casual, but I think I kind of like the casual episodes, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right, the first question is, manufacturing engineer as a major change. The question asker says, I recently switched my major from exercise science to mechanical engineering. In the exercise science major, I found that I didn't really care for the sciences, molecular, bio, and several chemistry classes. I'm currently in a mechanical engineering statics course, calculus 2, and physics 1, 2, 3. Now, none of these alone would normally seem to be too much, but since I also disliked physics 1, 2, 1 a decent amount, the statics and 1, 2, 3 course are a slog, and I dread class. There are much more statics courses on my graduation map. Yeah, you got dynamics and other related mechanical courses that I'd have to endure, and I'd rather get out while I can. Interestingly, there was a manufacturing engineering info meeting that I attended tonight, and the more hands-on approach seemed refreshing. I'm wondering that if I hated the physics statics part of mechanical engineering and the chemistry biology part of exercise science, would manufacturing engineering still be worth looking into? Or would I just be better off looking into a technology major that had a significantly less degree of focus on math and science? Well, I've actually interacted with this person already on Reddit, so they kind of know what I've already said. This is on r Ask Engineers. You know, engineering is a lot of sciences. Most of the courses I took, even if they were engineering courses, they were definitely science-based. So my background is mechanical engineering. Just to name a few classes that you'll take is statics, and then statics on steroids is called dynamics, which you'll have to take, or they call it mechanics and mechanics 2. And then after that, then you'll take a course called mass and energy balances, is what I took as a mechanical engineer, which is a lot of science. And then you'll take fluids and then heat transfer. And I'm definitely thermodynamics. I'm definitely skipping things along the way, but safe to say that definitely a mechanical engineering degree would have a lot of sciences. So if you don't really care for the sciences, then yeah, you're right that maybe mechanical engineering might not be the thing for you. But if you think you have the ability to stick it out and you're interested in the other aspects of the class, like the problem solving and design classes and other things, then maybe you could stick it out. And if you can stick it out, I recommend that over manufacturing engineering, mainly just because manufacturing engineering is not necessarily a degree that I've heard as much about. And the reason why I say that is because my degree is called engineering science. I studied mechanical engineering, but my actual degree name was engineering science. And that made it a little bit difficult for me when trying to find a job. So hiring managers really like to look for the degrees that they recognize. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're an engineer and they're looking for an engineering degree that they recognize. They could also just be a recruiter. And they could have been told, hey, you need to hire mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and civil engineers, and chemical engineers. And if they see your manufacturing engineering degree, they might get a little confused. So when in doubt, try to stick with one of the major engineering degree programs. The other thing is that, as you may mention, the mechanical engineering degree is a little more science-based, a little more theory-based than the manufacturing engineering degree. And it is still hands-on. And what I'd say is that anybody that gets a mechanical engineering degree can get a job working in manufacturing. A lot of mechanical engineers work in manufacturing, and but it doesn't work the other way around. So that's another reason why might want to stick with mechanical engineering over manufacturing engineering. One of the things to look into, though, and this question asker mentions it later on, is that degree program ABET accredited? If the program is ABET accredited, and you can check the NCEES website. Actually, should I check it? NCEES degrees accepted. Accepted. So the NCEES is a great website. You just Google NCEES degree acceptance, and there's a button on the bottom of the resources for accredited programs, and you can look at it's the ABET accreditation, where you can see whether or not your university's program is accredited, and then whether or not your program itself, that manufacturing engineering degree, qualifies you to take the fundamentals of engineering exam. Because if you're able to take that, you can take any fundamentals of engineering exam as long as you practice that, then get the requisite engineering experience, and then sit for the professional engineering exam. You can still have a professional engineering career, and nobody will really ask you at that point what your degree was called. They'll just kind of look more at your body of experience. So, but the other thing is, you asked the question, would you be better off looking into a technology major that had significantly less degree of focus on math and science? If you're really struggling with those intro level math and science courses, I would say potentially. But if you're not, if you're one of those people that you're doing well in them, or you're doing all right in them, but you just don't really like them that much, I would say that wouldn't be enough of a reason to leave the engineering degree program. I mean, I had a really good physics 1 professor, and I really enjoyed my physics classes because of that professor. But did I like physics? Not really. Did I really like calculus? It was cool, but did I really like it? No, it's not really. The moment whenever I realized that I really liked those things is whenever I started taking my upper division elective courses and my upper division classes, like I mentioned earlier, the thermos, the fluids, the mass and energy balances, where I was starting to apply those principles that I'd learned, and I found it much more interesting. So it's kind of this like the little hurdle whenever you're first starting, that you get all the fundamentals out of the way, and then you get to do the exciting stuff after that. So I would say if you're doing all right in it and you know that you're generally interested in engineering and what engineers do, then don't drop it. But if you're really struggling and you're not interested in it, then that's when I'd consider looking at a technology major. So yeah. All right, well, that's my super long-winded answer to that question. All right, let's go into the next question. Next question goes, this is R/mechanical engineering. Those of you that work in they say MEP consulting. Is it all building and construction projects, or do you get a variety of mechanical engineering projects? So MEP stands for mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And I believe that if you're an MEP engineer and you're a mechanical engineer and you get your professional engineering certification, then you get your mechanical, PE, and HVAC is what you'd get. And whenever you think of HVAC, you think of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. So as an MEP engineer, you would work in anything that involved an HVAC system. So yes, it would be building and construction projects. That's kind of the essence of what an MEP is. Though, if you listen to my earlier podcast episode with Emma Burbeck, where she talked about her previous experience as an MEP engineer, or my future interview, I'm manifesting a future interview with my buddy Luke. The job, although it is just building and construction projects, it is a very interesting job because you do get to do a variety of types of buildings. You know, you've got clean rooms for government contractors or semiconductor manufacturing facilities, and then you have like schools, universities, performance halls, all different types of things that you can do MEP for. Anything that involves a building, anything that needs an HVAC system, there's MEP engineering for. So yes, it is all building and construction projects, but it's exciting and interesting types of projects, and you get to see a bunch of different things really early on in your career. So I wouldn't discount MEP consulting at all, but yes, that is all it is for the most part. Unless, hey, somebody out there, if you're an MEP engineer and I'm wrong, write into engring.success@gmail.com and tell me that I'm wrong, or find me on Reddit and tell me that I'm wrong. But yeah, that's basically what MEP is. All right. Next question. This one is on our engineering students. And this one, I'd put this in my exciting engineering news category. The question is titled PDE Course Overview. And the question asker, it's not really a question, they're just a statement. I am taking a PDE course and we're spending about 3 weeks on the following for review: series and sequences, ODE techniques, intro to Fourier analysis, vector calculus, and then tackling partial differential equations. This course is very exciting. Thankfully, the professor is kind enough to review these materials because I'm sure we all need it for a deep understanding of harmonic functions. Okay, first off, I kind of called this out because I thought it was really cool, because I took PDE as part of my engineering coursework, partial differential equations, and I was really surprised to learn that whenever I got to my first internship, that a lot of the other engineers that I was interning with had not taken PDE, which I guess is not a required course. And I looked at it, and UT Austin and other state engineering programs don't require partial differential equations. Now they might have courses that cover partial differential equations, but not to the extent that I got to learn in my university PDE class. So that class kicked my butt. I mean, it was I think that was the closest I came to being like, oh my gosh, I'm 100% going to fail this class and I'm not going to graduate on time. Thankfully, I was able to squeak it out, but uh, it was a really tough class, and definitely a lot of people in our program found it difficult and challenging. But I'm really glad that I did take it because the fundamentals I learned in PDE, I was able to then apply in my fluids and my heat transfer classes after that. So, or during and after that. So, well, I took them after that. So, yeah. Shout out to you, uh, Airborne Eagle 66, for offering it to your academic dean and filling out a request form to have it offered. That's again, it's a very difficult subject, and you're going to apply it in fluids. So shout out to you for going out of the way to get an in-depth understanding of how PDE works. You have a level of intellectual, educational curiosity that I aspire to have one day. So shout out to you. All right. The next question is on R, I want to learn, and this is going to kind of send us into a quick little ad break. But they say, I want to learn how to start a podcast. They say, I've been told by friends that I should pursue the comedy route, and I already am through local open mics and school talent shows. One idea I had thought of is the launching of my own podcast. How would I do that? And yeah, I'll say my bit, and then for those watching on YouTube, I'll go into the next part of the podcast, and for those listening on Anchor or your preferred audio streaming platform, you'll get to hear my short answer and then the ad after that. So what I recommend is starting out by investing as little money into it as possible and just trying to explore it. So for me, I've kind of grown my setup over time, but you can start a podcast with just your phone. You can just speak into your phone's microphone and record it. And the cool thing is that now there's this newer program called Anchor, which I use for my podcast, that allows you to host your podcast for free. See, podcasting, you don't upload all your podcast episodes individually into each audio platform like Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts. What you do is you use a podcast hosting server, and that's what Anchor is, and it's completely free, and you don't need to there's no minimum listenership, there's no hosting fees, again, free. There's nothing, no requirements. All you have to do is super easy. You just set up your podcast in Anchor, and then you can even actually record your podcast in Anchor. But yeah, just set it up in Anchor, and it'll set up your distributions for you. You might have to manually add a couple, like Apple Music, but yeah, it's super easy, super straightforward. I recommend using Anchor and spending as little money as possible. And then just listen to podcasts. I listen to the Bill Burr's Monday Morning Podcast, and that's kind of the casual philosophy that I take towards how I approach my podcast. But listen to different podcasts and see what do you like, what you don't like, what things are things in podcasts that you want to emulate in your podcast stylistically. And I'm sure that, again, as you get more and more into it and you start to figure out what you want to do, then you kind of grow and invest your setup. But I wouldn't throw a bunch of money at the beginning, and then start with Anchor. It's free. And then just kind of start listening to podcasts and uploading episode after episode to see what you like, and then kind of grow into your podcast from there. So anyways, I wish you the best of luck with starting your podcast. All right. The next question is on our Ask Engineers, and I responded to this question because I just think it's interesting. So this person asked, how and where can I move this post and still maintain enough support? And they go on the subreddit and they basically describe their house and their garage is on a basement level. And they ask all these people on Reddit how they can eliminate this post in their garage to gain clearance and still provide support. And I will say the process around that is that what people, if you're trying to do something with your house or something like that, hire a structural engineer, hire a professional engineer, a licensed structural engineer, professional engineer. Get somebody that is what they do. They analyze housing structures. Reddit is not the best place to ask for that kind of thing. And I understand trying to save money, but again, with that kind of thing, you just got to reach out to a professional. And yes, it'll cost money, but that's their job. That's their service that they provide to make a living. So that's the way to go about doing that kind of thing. But yes, the structural engineer will also be available, will be knowledgeable about permitting and things like that in your city that you need to do to get that kind of stuff done. So that's another reason to reach out to a structural engineer. Or yeah. All right. And I think, yep, I'm on to my last question. The last question is, are engineering students, I don't know if I can do this. IDK, if I can do this. This is tagged rant vent. Uh-oh. All right, so the question asker goes on to say, hi, I have severe depression and anxiety, and it's starting to interfere with my confidence and my studies. I used to think I was meant to be an engineer, but now I'm a junior in my civil engineering program, CE. I think I'm guessing civil engineering, unless it's chemical. And I'm so tired most days, it feels like everything I'm learning is going in one ear and out the other. I don't want to give up on school, but I've been struggling mentally despite getting good grades since I started college. I feel like I'm falling apart, and no one else in my classes seems to have trouble understanding or have a lack of energy like me. Is it possible I'm just not cut out for my dream career? Any advice or ways to get past these feelings would be appreciated. All right, first of all, you said you've had good grades so far, so shout out to you. You must be doing something right. You know, college engineering programs, in my opinion, a lot of moments I felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose. I mean, there's just so much to learn so quickly, and realistically, how many of those things that you're learning and accumulating are you going to directly apply in your career? A fraction of them. I mean, the principles obviously and the basic fundamentals, but you know, there's a lot more than just the things that go in one ear and out the other that you learn from your engineering program. You're learning how to solve problems. You're learning how to teach yourself. You're learning how to understand engineering concepts. You're learning how to operate under tough timelines and handle a bunch of things at once. How to work on a project team. How to solve these engineering problems. And whenever you do get a job, you're a junior. Now you're a junior in college now. When you do get a job, what you'll find is that yes, all these principles are important, but the things that you do in your job are going to be, in many instances, things that you learned on the job. So the process of which you do, if you're a civil engineer, you're doing the calculations for designing the structure or pouring concrete for a foundation, or again, I'm out of my element here, but yeah, you're going to learn the methodologies that your company does to do that. And you're going to be working under a senior level engineer that's going to teach you those things and the way that your company goes about doing those things. So you're going to have a really good fundamental understanding. Obviously, you already have a good fundamental understanding because you've made good grades in these classes. And yes, it's a lot of information. So it's okay to feel like things are going in one ear and out the other. Just keep up with it. What I encourage you to do is try to get an internship, and try this summer after your junior year is a super important summer to get an internship, so that way you can see how those things are applied and kind of get the first-hand side of what I just said, that you learn a lot of things on the job. And it's really common for people to feel like the way you're feeling, or whenever they first start their job, feel imposter syndrome and feel like they don't know what they're doing. But that's the reality, is that, yeah, an engineering degree will teach you a lot, but it won't teach you everything you need to know to be an engineer that generates a product. It takes time and experience and learning. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of other engineering graduates that have been in the exact same situation you are in and then went on to have a great career. So I wouldn't let yourself feel down, and I wouldn't beat yourself up about it. And I would just focus on trying to get an internship so you can kind of see what give a taste of that dream career is. And then after that, work at trying to find a company where you have a good work-life balance and you're able to minimize the number of hours that you're working outside of the traditional 40-hour work week. And you'll find that things stick a little bit better and they're not going in one ear and out the other as much. And you'll really get really good at what you're doing. So again, I wish you the best, and you're fine. You're in a very familiar boat. I was in a similar boat until I had my first internship. So, yeah, I think you'll be fine. But, yep, that was a short engineering success podcast. If you like the podcast, rate it 5 stars on Apple Music, favorite it on Anchor, share it with your friends, share it with your mom, play it for your dog. I mean, anything really, just to get me more plays would be kind of nice. We're averaging about 40 or 50 plays an episode, which is pretty solid, but our goal is to average more than 100 plays per episode by the end of 2021. So if you think that you know somebody that might benefit from the podcast, or if you have a question, make sure that you share the podcast with your friends, and you write in your questions to engring.success@gmail.com. And if you really like the podcast and you really find it beneficial and you want to give me your money, you can do so on my Anchor website page. It's linked in the show notes of the podcast. You can just click and it'll give you the option to donate to the podcast if you want to be a top tier supporter and get a shout out during every single episode of the podcast at the very beginning. And yes, I will shout out anything PG rated that you want me to shout out at the beginning of the podcast. So basically, it's like a super cheap ad for any kind of business that wants to sponsor the podcast. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. $10 a month gets you a shout out at every single podcast. $5 a month gets you a shout out at the beginning of the first podcast of the month. And then a one-time donation of any amount greater than $1. I'll give you, at this point, I'll give you a shout out at the beginning of the next episode. So, yeah, really appreciate y'all's support. Again, I don't do it for the money. It's more of a passion project than anything. But as you may notice, I'm accumulating more and more studio equipment, and I'm getting a little bit savvier and savvier with my production. So any contributions that are made will allow me to continue to do that. So anyways, this has been the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 12, a quick little hitter here. And I'm Daniel. Again, I wish you the best with your careers, and I'll hopefully check in with you next week, if not the week after that. Cheers. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.